Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. For those of you who have not seen 10 for the Chairman, this is where I take 10 questions from subscribers. Subscribers are the subset of our community that contribute money every month to enable us to do all this additional community content. Things like the Jump Point magazine that we do every month, which is somewhere between 40 and 70 pages and is behind the scenes like articles on how we built ships or designs that we're doing or lore in the universe, as well as some fiction and of course things like Around the Verse, Bug Smashers, other things like Shipshape and all the various video stuff, and of course this program. So thank you very much to the subscribers to allowing us to do all the community content, which I think really makes a big difference in Star Citizen because we get to update you guys all the time. So therefore I kind of have fun. It's an opportunity to sort of answer some questions from you guys in general. So, you know, just brief update from me. I've just came back to LA from being over in the UK. I think you guys had seen me, and there was a BBC Click show that had visited us here in LA, but also in the UK. And when I was over in the UK, that was where they were interviewing me. So now I'm back in sort of very sunny LA, which is quite nice, but only here for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to go back, and that's pretty much my schedule this year, as we're sort of cranking on both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen itself, is being in all the studios. So I spend 2 weeks in the US, 2 weeks in the UK, and a week in Germany, and it's actually quite it's a lot of fun actually sitting around working with all the various teams and driving through everything we're just trying to get done. So the only thing you have to do is forgive me if I look slightly tired, because right now is the witching hour for jet lag for me, and of course we're recording this before the Monday you'll see this in, so I'm still on the back end of the jet lag, but there you go. But I'm quite happy to be back in nice sunny LA before I go back to rainy Manchester. Anyway, all right, let's get started. The first question is from SP3CTRE in NYC, so I think it's kind of meant to be sort of Spectre NYC with a backwards E, who asks what type of work is being done to increase the server population capacity. Should we expect to see 24 or 32 player instances in the near future? So the answer to that is absolutely. I think if you've been watching some of the chatter on the recent PT releases and what's going to be in 2.2, it is going to be 24 players. So we've been working hard on sort of optimizing areas so we can sort of scale more. I think I've mentioned before that the biggest issue that we have is just the overhead that the ships have, because they're very complicated. They have multiple items that have all this functionality that need to talk to each other over the network. They're attached to ships, so a ship isn't just one entity. It's, in the case of a Hornet it can be 50 or 60. In the case of a bigger ship it's a lot more than 50 or 60. So they're very heavy sort of processing wise in the server in terms of just simulation and also in network sort of traffic. So in general that's more of the limiting factor, which we've been working on. So we're refactoring a lot of things to make it much more smart about when it has to update and all the other things, and that sort of ties into the work that we've done in the past on the zone system. And we're doing sort of a whatever you want to call it, a network LOD and an update LOD that sort of scopes depending on whether you can see things, how far away they are, whether they're active, whether it's another player, whether it's relevant to you. And so hopefully all that stuff helps increase the load that we can do. And we're doing things like we're pushing more and more into multiple cores, more multi-threading to be able to do more physics processing at the same time as we're doing more sort of entity update and simulation. So part of the result of that is moving to more players in Crusader, and we'll continue, and we're expecting to continue to sort of push that over time to get more and more. And we're actually working on some back-end server mesh tech that will allow us to sort of mesh a lot more players all in essentially what will be kind of sort of the same instance. But that's sort of a little further along, but it's I think exciting. So I think we'll be able to deliver probably more players than we were thinking originally in concurrent areas. And I think actually there's a question later about that, so maybe talk a bit more about it then. All right, the next question comes from Sage_Alig, who asks, I am curious as to how tri-monitor support will be handled. Most games don't support the full resolution of all 3 monitors. The picture is just stretched to the sides on the outer monitors. I would like to know if Star Citizen will render the picture for all 3 monitors without stretching to the sides, or will the game just stretch out like many others do? No, I mean, I think right now you can set, say if you have 3 monitors set up, 3 1080p screens, you can get sort of 15760 across by 1080p across the 3 screens, and you're essentially just going to, have a greater field of view. We haven't focused on that stretch screen stuff as support, so we've got some things that we need to work out, like for instance, when you're wearing a helmet, how much of that's getting included by a helmet versus not being included by a helmet, because one of the things I wanted to do on the design side is to give you a sense of sort of wearing like heavy armor or a helmet. You get extra protection, you move slower, drains your stamina more, but also you don't necessarily get as much visibility. So I want a situation as you are playing the game that you will sort of wear outfits or appropriately for the situation like you do in the real world. So for instance, if you didn't have the restriction of visibility and bulkiness of an EVA suit when you're flying around, say, in your Constellation, why wouldn't you always be in the EVA suit in a game? Because then, well, what happens if we get attacked and there's depressurization? Well, then, I'll live. But what we want you to do is, say you go out in EVA, then you come back to your ship and you take your EVA suit and put it in the locker and take the helmet off, because now you get a much wider field of view and you're not wearing a bulky EVA suit, so you can sit down in the pilot's seat and control things and do stuff like that. So we're sort of thinking very much about sort of that sort of tactile experience to create your behavior that's appropriate. And then of course, like if you're getting attacked and there's a hull breach, then you better rush and get your EVA suit on quickly before there's full decompression, because if you're not wearing a suit and it decompresses, obviously that's not good for you. So in regards to that, on the multi-monitor setup, in terms of having the helmets, then we're just sort of trying to think of how much would encroach. But actually, again, that would be a good illustration of like why you would encourage people to maybe take the helmet off, right? Because if you took the helmet off, you would get that full 3-monitor surround, and you would get it obviously in the chase views and all that, and the external views. But like if you had a heavy helmet on, maybe part of those monitors are obscured by that. Maybe not as much as they are now, but that would be kind of the idea. So that is the goal. We may also do some additional support in the multi-monitor view to have specific sort of fields of view set up for that. I don't know if any of you remember the AMD demo we did quite a few years ago when they were announcing their last round of new chip technologies. It was when we were first starting our partnership with them, and we actually showed the game in sort of 1576 by 1080, and we'd changed around the view ratios in such a way to actually handle that sort of format properly and not have it sort of have that sort of fish-eyed stretched effect. And it was quite cool, and we may sort of do a bit more of that, but that's sort of a little further down on terms of our priority list, because there's a lot of other things that we're doing graphically and tweaking for before then. All right, next question comes from Hypertoxic, who asks, are there any short-term plans on integrating our Hangar and PlanetSide module with the mini PU Universe/Crusader module? Absolutely, so that is the goal. So the goal is really that Crusader, which we call the mini PU, and it really is that's the little baby PU, and it's going to be growing up in front of your very eyes, and we'll be adding to it. So we're just going to be folding in everything to that, which will be the hangar, which will be the landing areas. So as soon as we have the Planetary transition, the procedural planet stuff that we've shown in an estate that we're sharing with everyone out there, which isn't going to be that far away, it'll be sooner than you guys think, then you won't have any of this load in separately to our corp. So you'll just sort of go to the planet, and you'll sort of fly down and get landing permission and land in the landing area and get out and move around and interact with people and buy things and get missions and get back in your ship and fly back. So that is the goal, and that's what we're expecting to do. So the process is sort of like you've already seen. Well, you haven't necessarily, but in the PTU, people have seen it. We've sort of rescaled Crusader, and this is true on 2.2. But essentially, that's just going to start changing, and that will be Stanton's system over the next few releases that we're doing. So we'll build it out to be Stanton, and then we'll be going between the different areas and planets on Stanton and the space stations. And then ultimately, when all that's working, we've got sort of various missions and a lot of the ecosystem working, and then we will open up and have jump points, and then we'll, say, move into some other systems. So that's kind of the process. You're going to sort of see Star Citizen, the persistent universe, grow in front of your eyes. And I think the actual level of like fidelity and detail, which you can see as you move around, even in a sort of very compressed area like Crusader without that many things to do, sort of just means even though we don't have hundreds or billions of star systems, there's still lots to do and lots of detail and lots of texture, and that's kind of our focus, is to make this sort of feel like an incredibly like cool and alive and emergent world that you can sort of play your trade. I mean, in some ways people could make a whole living, a whole life staying inside one star system. So there you are, that's the plans on that. Next question comes from Shaden Diamos, who asks, about the 12-month subscriber perk, your name in the game, will we be able to submit our real life name if we want to? Are you just going to take our Star Citizen names? No, you can submit whatever name you want. So the only reason why a lot of times we have a handle is because it's okay to do a handle, because you guys have basically said, that's your game name, so that's fine. And some people like their privacy, but it's up to you. So if you want your real name, we'll put your real name in. If you want your handle, we put your handle in. All right, next question comes from Wolf Fracken, who asks, will flight decks and Wing Commander style carriers be the only form of carriers we'll see in Star Citizen? Or will we see the drop bay approach you used in Star Lancer? Or another idea? Well, I think in general, I mean, obviously, Wing Commander style is sort of kind of influenced by the classic, World War II and modern day carrier style, and the Bengal, obviously, that you saw back in the 2012 video we did, and will be in Squadron 42, is very much along those lines. And in some ways, the Idris is sort of like a small, I know we call it a frigate, but really it's kind of like a small escort carrier or something like that, or a scout carrier. And it has, again, a sort of very similar flight deck where it's sort of encased but can open up and you can fly in and out of it. We will have some other ships that will be more like sort of helipad style. So, if you think about, say, depending, like some modern day ships, they can have they have a helipad or a little hangar for a helicopter and stuff like that. So there'll definitely be some sort of drop down where bays open up and you drop down on some ships, and ships can land and be inside it. And of course, you have some sort of parasite style ships, which the Constellation is a good example, where there's a Merlin that's docked in the back that you can get in and fly around. So we'll have various different styles. I mean, I think for instance, the Van Dull carrier has a different sort of launching and sort of loading mechanism for the ships. It's not quite the same as the human ones, which makes kind of sense because they're alien. So there'll be a good variety, and we'll probably increase that as time goes on. So there you go. All right, next question comes from Corey Fayas, who asks, howdy. There you go, howdy, Corey Fayas. Got a question about the procedural tech. How far is it going to go with the planets? We know about rocks and grass, but what about life forms and plant life? Basically, I'm asking about the blending of artist-created content and procedural content. What's the mix like? Our plan is to have all levels of planet, from sort of the basic sort of rocky, barren planet, which we sort of showed a little bit of when we showed the tech at the end of last year. And by the way, that's moved on pretty significantly from where it was when we showed you last year, so that's looking a lot better. But ultimately, to take it to the level where you get a crisis level, which includes things like obviously the grass, which you mentioned, the rocks, but vegetation, trees, plants, water, so oceans, streams, wildlife, so you can have alien wildlife, birds in the sky, all that sort of stuff. And ultimately, our goal will be to sort of create ecosystems and a certain level of weather and stuff like that on these planets. So that's sort of our roadmap, and what our goal is to use the procedural tools to sort of generate massive play areas, because an artist can't do that by hand, but it's very much sort of artist overseen, and it's sort of designer overseen. So we don't just have a formula and it just creates stuff and that's all it is. It's using those tools to create these areas, and then the designers and artists are influencing it by looking at areas and tweaking it, essentially sort of doing a little guide sort of hints to the procedural system of what they want to see in this area. They want this to be sort of a plain, or this mountainous, or is this going to be a desert, or all these kind of things. And we'll also try to have some ecosystems and tell the wildlife, and allow us to sort of place down a lot of sort of emergent gameplay. So that isn't necessarily around like landing areas, because landing areas are very cool, and we build those, and we'll build a lot of those out of sort of prefab sets, so we can sort of build some fairly quickly, and some of it will be pretty bespoke, because Earth is going to be Earth and Terra is going to be Terra. But it's a big universe, and we've got a lot of stuff to populate. So we also need areas where you can land, and France, maybe you're going around as a miner, or looking for minerals, or all these sort of things that once we have a procedural world we can open up, where you can go down and look for natural resources, and those can be sort of generated procedurally, and then players can go down and mine. And we can also create all sorts of missions down on planets, so like for instance a supply mission, like there's a scientific outpost that we just sort of have this couple of different sort of temporary sort of science outposts or installations, and mission is to take supplies to them, but you can't land your ship nearby where the outpost is, so you have to land it sort of in the closest available area, and then load up the supplies into your buggy or sort of whatever vehicle you have, and drive it up to them and deliver it to get payment. Maybe there's a down ship that you have to rescue off a planet, and we can sort of have farmers or settlers and all. I mean, so there's a lot of kind of fun, sort of almost mission-based emergent stuff that we can have. So it's not just about spawning stuff out in space. There could be some stuff that's spawned down on planet surfaces that cause sort of destinations for you to do stuff. And so that's very much like what Tony and I and Todd Pappy have been talking about in terms of like the mission, sort of the bigger sort of mission emergent setup that we're going to do in the procedural universe. And it'll be very cool, and it will be done to the fidelity that we sort of achieve to, and you're seeing, which is sort of very tactile, very there, seeing it actually happen. And I think that's the strength of Star Citizen, is that it's, instead of it sort of being very big picture, very pulled back, it's there, and you're there looking at, like you're in your ship, and you can see the seat and the controls, and you can get up, and you can go to, and get in a bed, or get in a shower, or go to the toilet, or sit down at the dining table, and everything's there, and you can touch and use it, so it sort of feels real. And we want that level of sort of interaction and fidelity throughout the whole game. So we won't be able to do 400 billion star systems like that, but we certainly be able to do quite a few using procedural tools, and I think it will feel really rich and really dense and really cool. And we have the tools in such a way that the players' actions are generating interest and action for other players or other NPCs. I think it'll be a really, really pretty cool experience. So I'm very excited. I just wish these things were happening quicker. All right, next question comes from Kilarius Maximilian, who asks, you stated that all parts of the universe will be instanced with max amounts of players being inside of an instance, and many instances of the same space can be generated at the same time. How will that work so people and their friends always get into the same instance to work as a team? Right, well, so I touched a little bit at the top of this 10 for the Chairman, talking about the fact that we are working on getting more and more people into an individual instance, or really what it's more about is getting more people into an individual game server. So right now, if you play, in Crusader on 2.2, there'll be 24 players that can be in that. Now that's one game server instance. Now we actually have that. There's 8 of those, I believe. Yep, the 32 core server we're running on, and we have 8 game server instances on that one 32 core server, each using 4 cores. Now, the real goal would be not to have 8 on that. It would be rather to have one game server running on that one 32 core machine. And so then, if we have 8 people now, and you add 8 times 24, you're getting a much larger number of people, right? I mean, you're almost at 200 people at that point, and that would be on one server. So, and that's without us doing more and more optimization. So that's what we're sort of moving towards. And then on the client side, even though the server can maybe deal with more more entities because it doesn't have to render, it doesn't have to move all the memory around from. It just has to sort of deal with the background simulation and updating stuff. The clients may not be able to, but then the clients would sort of make sure that what's around you, what you can see, is what it's drawing and updating and being told through by the server. And then on top of that, we're planning to have sort of seamless server transitions and basically mesh the servers together. So instead of, I'm in Stanton's system and I'm on one server, or I'm on a second server or a third server in Stanton's system, that's not the way Stanton's going to work. It's going to be very dynamic, and we'll actually have, say you'll start with one server, and people fly around. It could be anywhere in Stanton, like is what you can do right now in Crusader. But then as you go beyond the cap, say, I'm just going to, just for simplicity's sake, let's just say we can run 50 people on a server, right? So, 30 people, 40 people, they're all running around Stanton, no problem doing their stuff. AIs are doing their stuff. But now a whole new bunch of people come in and we move from 30 people to 60 people. Well, okay, that's more than we can fit on one server. So at that point, we will always have one probably server ticking over, ready, and you keep one as a buffer. So we'll say, oh, okay, now we've got more than we can fit on one server, so we sort of migrate players to whichever server is appropriate, and we just sort of arbitrarily would go, okay, well, there's a clump of players over here, so this server will take care of them, and there's a clump over here, and this server will take care of them. And now both these servers have full global view of the whole star system, and the servers also talk to each other as well as the clients. So the server essentially is responsible for, say, simulating the entities that it's authoritative of, but it will also tell the other server if the other server needs to know what the entity that this server did with. So basically that's where its edge case is. So it's like, okay, I'm updating these people, but there's one guy that's over here that's coming towards you, and you've got a guy over here. So this server is saying, oh, this is where this guy is. So this server knows and has a sort of copy of him in his memory space, and vice versa. So you can sort of basically resolve overlaps between sort of server control areas. And so that's kind of the idea is, as more and more people come in, you spin up more and more servers, and they all mesh together, so you can ultimately have hundreds, if not thousands, of people all simulating essentially in the same instance. And then your real limitation is more about the client and what the client can render and see on its side. So that's kind of the plan, which is a sort of a more dynamic and actually a more advanced and I think ultimately better solution than what we'd talked before, which was sort of much more sort of instance on top of each other, and you can only ever see 30 other people or 50 other people or whatever it would be. And I think that it's going to be good. So that's what we're working towards. There will probably be some cases where there'll just still be too many people. I can see in a landing area where maybe there's 1,000 people hanging around a landing area, and we just won't be able to have 1,000 people, 100 people will get together, or 500 people will say, let's go to the courtyard. Well, on a client, you just can't render 500 people. It just won't happen. So what we'll probably do is, besides having aggressive LODs, at some point, you just cull out people beyond a certain area, but they'll all be sort of tagged and known there. So as you move around as a client, people will come in and out of your visibility, basically your sort of sphere of visibility, and I think it'll seem pretty seamless. And then on top of that, getting down to your friends, which is one of the key parts of this question, we will know who are sort of your acquaintances, who you've tagged as your person of interest, who you play, who's on your friend list, stuff like that. And so if you're making decisions of who you can see, like, because at some point if there's too many people and the client's saying, I just can't render this many people, I have to choose some entities or people to not see, it would not be the people that you as a player are sort of tagged as your friends or that you're interested in, and so they would get preference in terms of the algorithm that determines who you see or who is called out or who isn't called out. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. So you should be able to kind of hang out and work with your friends, and I think the only issues we're going to get is, which will happen because we have some pretty massive organization, there is no way we can possibly have one of those massive 1,000 people in a space battle setups, but I do think we will probably be able to get like quite a few hundred people doing that, which will be pretty cool. But I'm sure all you guys will figure out ways to break it, and that's what it is. But I think it's going to be a pretty cool experience. I'm actually quite excited by the tech that we're working for this. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a lot of time because we're building something that's really, we're right on the cutting edge of this kind of stuff. I mean, there's a few other projects that are doing similar stuff, using sort of the cloud architecture to sort of dynamically scale and process much more bigger, denser worlds than you could do on a single server or a single client, which is what we're doing. But I think it is the future, and it's going to be pretty cool. So there you go. The next question comes from Corrupt U4 Fun 1. In the new jump point, there is mention of an update that will bring the ability to lower your wanted level by hacking a console. There will also be a need to defend it while that hack completes. What portions of FPS will need to be finalized and implemented for that update? Well, nothing really. That's all in 2.2. So, I mean, what we're doing, I think I've mentioned this quite a few times, is on the FPS side, we have a whole bunch of features and weapons that we're just sort of methodically going through and enabling. And a lot of it is content related, so getting the animations polished before we feel like they're ready for everyone to see or use, or the same on the assets. And some of it is sort of making some of the mechanics sort of work, move a little better. But so we've got things like vaulting, like vaulting over obstacles and stuff, that isn't going to be in 2.2, but it will be in 2.3, for instance. And so what we've been doing is just sort of knocking off sort of the cover mechanics, things like prone or crouching, and various things in 2.2. We have physicalized EVA, which is actually really cool. You get a real sense of inertia. You have to be a bit more wary, like in tight areas, because we're actually properly physically simulating. So it's like flying around a spaceship in a tight area. You don't really want to just bang up against things, because it will sort of give you a bit of an impulse. But when you get it down, I think it's cooler and more exhilarating. And we'll be adding more and more things that will make that cooler. So that's just our plan, is we're just continually adding more and more functionality to FPS. I mean, our goal is the FPS is going to be very comparative to other FPSs out there that are, have a whole bunch of, cool detail and accuracy. So we're not really aiming to be a simplified run and gun shooter. We're actually aiming to be much more sort of tactical and considered, and have that sort of reflect on a lot of the FPS mechanics. So there'll be a lot of options and kind of things you can do in stances and actions, and ultimately it'll have the equivalent of being able to do parkour with sliding and vaulting over stuff and ledge grabbing and all the rest of the stuff. So that's all on the roadmap, and we have captured animations for all of it, and we're slowly churning through the thousands of animations and hooking it up, making sure the animation blending works, and all the various sort of things you have to worry about to make it work well. But I'm pretty confident that when it's all said and done, it'll be actually pretty damn cool. Next question comes from Narc Oman, who asks, since Corvettes fill a role between capital and subcapital ships, should we expect the up-and-coming ship or other Corvettes to be more versatile or more economical? So you definitely should expect them to be more economical. I don't know about whether it's more versatile, because, to be honest with you, the Idris is, for the money, it's packs a punch. I mean, it's like a mini carrier, plus it can go toe-to-toe with other capital ships. Has massive living quarters and everything like that. But we're sort of planning that the proper Corvette window will be maybe about 100 meters or so, and it's it'll be more focused on let's put it this way: it's not going to be a massive carrier. I mean, obviously you'll be able to dock a ship and do all the rest of the stuff, and it certainly can hold its own fighting some fighters and bigger ships. And quite a few of them would probably cause a problem for a bigger ship like a frigate or a destroyer and all the rest of stuff. But it should be also easier to control and command, because the Idris is just huge. I mean, I think you've seen some of the stuff we've shown for it, and it's just massive. And it's really probably not going to be a viable ship for one person to, or even one person and a few of his friends to sort of command. I think the Idris is sort of going to require quite a few players to sort of man it in unison, which I think would be really satisfying once all that happens, and definitely some NPCs helping you out. And so the Corvette, I think, will be just more manageable. Last question comes from Syntax, who asks, what is the end vision for planetary ship entry? I would love to see a requirement for a crew to analyze various aspects such as atmospheric pressure, composition, etc., that facilitates an active participation for the crew to determine the best mode of entry. Well, we haven't actually flesh this out. We do have plans for sort of atmospheric entry and atmospheric flight. I mean, you know, we all kind of want to do, if you've seen Prometheus, the sort of Prometheus entry down onto the planet, or if you go back to Aliens, they had a very cool, you know, I mean, it's much, the effects aren't nearly as nice as the ones in Prometheus, but, you know, going through the storm and the, you know, the clouds and the turbulence. So we definitely want that where, like, depending on the kind of planet, you know, potentially a planet that you could go down and find minerals and strip and you know, gather resources that you could sell for a lot of money, it should perhaps be quite dangerous to get down there, and maybe you have to figure out how to get down there without, you know, getting caught up in, you know, huge storms, all the rest of the stuff. So we want to make that part of the feature. I mean, we've been discussing it, you know, obviously John Pritchett's our flight model guru, so we've already been going back and forth on some of that. Of course, we have quite a few other things to do, but we are planning so clouds on planets and weather systems and all the rest of stuff. So we definitely will ultimately have that, and I think it will be a pretty cool experience. Won't be in, you know, any time in the near future, but it is definitely something that we are planning. And you know, I don't know whether you would necessarily go to a full-length scientific analysis, but there will be certain kinds of planets that will be more dangerous to enter and will require some skill to enter. But I think there will be rewards if you're getting down there. And maybe some you won't even be able to scan from a distance without getting through the cloud layer and stuff like that. So there you go. All right, that is the end of this 10 for the Chairman. Thank you for sitting here and listening to me. Thank you, everybody out there that's back Star Citizen. Constantly amazed. We've got this amazing community, and you know, this year is going to be great. A lot, you know, I'm really quite excited because we finally got the team is sort of at a critical mass point where we have enough people that we can sort of be fully cranking on all the aspects at the same time and really delivering a lot of content. So that's quite different than last year where we sort of weren't able to consistently deliver content. So this year I sort of feel like we're going to be you know, making really consistent updates and progress on the big persistent universe, and obviously we're doing the same on Squadron 42, and it's all because of you guys. It's you guys are supporting us, enabling us to build a game no publisher would ever build in their right mind, and I think building a game that you know, the PC crowd around the world and Space Sim fans around the world can look at and go, wow, this is incredible, and we're super proud. So thank you, and thank you to subscribers for kicking in the extra money to sort of fund our ability to do this sort of additional content for everyone to keep people up and informed. And I will talk to you next week. Thanks, bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching 10 for the Chairman. If you guys would like to see more episodes, go here. If you guys would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel and always keep up to date with all our video content, go here. And if you guys would like to watch episodes of Around the Verse, go here please. And I will see you in the verse.